Good morning. Welcome to Live with Liz. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Today we are talking about career paths in law firms. And career paths, we're talking about not just for attorneys, but for everyone in the law firm, from your receptionist to your paralegals to your clerks. Everyone needs to have this sort of identified journey that they're taking in the advancement of their professional lives. And that's what a career path is. We're defining the advancement in your professional world from one position to another position, hopefully with more responsibility along the way. Uh, these are the methods that you're going to take to get a promotion or get a more prestigious title or become wealthy or get more money. And at law firms, we'll talk a bit about what the attorney career path looks like, but I always just kind of took it for granted, being someone from the corporate world, that there would be a career path and that people would know what these career paths are, that these are just sort of transparent things, that everyone has these goals. You get evaluated every year and you know what it takes to move from one level to the next to the next. But at law firms, my experience with different teams has been varied. In the US, I expect there to be a career path that's fairly transparent and that identifies the different goals that need to be met in order for people to advance. Outside of the US, I have found these to be relatively non-existent. And in the places where they do exist, they have been, in my own experience, not very transparent. People don't really know what to expect. So this is an important topic to me for people to kind of get the US perspective and to see why you need to have a career path and what can be done with these journeys that people need to take and what transparency can lead to. So from the law firm perspective, you're really looking at a way to motivate people, increase productivity, and really retain the people who work for you. Because without those career paths and without that advancement, people tend to leave. And turnover is costly. What happens when people leave? You have a gap in your services, perhaps. Maybe they take a book of business with them. Maybe you have problems trying to retain other people. Maybe they take a whole group of people with them. So it's really important to make sure that the people who work for you have an understanding of what it takes to move up from an entry-level clerk position to maybe a junior associate position to an associate, and then on to becoming maybe a junior partner or a member of the firm, and how long it takes for those things to happen. And in some places, that's very clear cut. In other places, it's not. In some places, and actually, I recommend that these be personalized, that you take a lot of things into consideration when you're looking at the advancement of a particular person. These are people we're talking about. So not all people are the same. Not all goals are going to be the same. You can't weigh everyone and it's not apples to apples. So these are all things to take into consideration when defining the career path for someone. In general, in the US, you would expect that someone who comes into a law firm as an attorney would spend, maybe around 7 or 8 years before they're starting to really be considered for partner level position, but that they've moved up along the way. And moving up can mean bringing in new clients. It can mean improving some sort of service level issue at the firm. It can be something related like that to efficiency. Or it can mean achieving additional credentials, maybe additional experience over time, of course, with tenure and the years of service that you put in, but also getting an extra certificate or adding a skill to what you already do can be the thing that puts you from one level to the next. Now, outside of the United States, I was really shocked, and maybe you don't know this, but when I do this kind of consulting level service, I usually like to interview all of the different stakeholders and team members when it comes to the projects that we're working on, just to get an understanding of what the expectations are of the team and what their goals are individually, to see if there's an opportunity or maybe to see if there's a challenge to bring people together and make people more successful. And in my experience talking to a lot of people, actually, there was one in particular that I think is illustrative of what it kind of looks like outside of the United States. I was sitting down with a young, brilliant attorney. She was someone who exuded confidence when it came to the subject matter, and I really just wanted to work with her. And I said to her, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And she paused and started to cry. And this was the last thing I ever expected, because this woman was so confident and such a great attorney. And I just couldn't believe that this simple question would lead to this emotional response. But it did, because she worked in a family firm. And she knew that she would never make partner where she was because she didn't have the right last name, the right bloodline. And it didn't matter how much business she brought in. If she ever wanted to achieve leadership in that firm, well, she wouldn't be able to at all. If she ever wanted to achieve leadership anywhere, she would have to leave that firm and maybe go to another firm, but maybe open one for herself. So this got me to thinking, this is a problem in a lot of firms that have not instituted the defined career path ideology and put this into practice in their firms. So when you're talking about productivity, motivation, retention, these are things that really help the bottom line of the ownership of a firm. Why wouldn't you at least put the structure together and create something transparent? I know that there are some barriers to being able to do that, and that there are different philosophies and different structures of firms in different countries. But overall, the benefits of having these in place and being able to retain people and motivate them is something that I don't think a lot of owners realize they can really take credit for. And for whatever reason, maybe you're an attorney who is running your own firm who doesn't have the business background, or you've grown it from the ground up and it hasn't really been the center of focus for your firm to consider what all of these other people need in order to be successful and in order to really help you and your wealth and your firm itself. And you don't want to give up some of that control, which is also understandable. So what do you do? It's not an all or nothing game. You can start slowly and say, what would you want for yourself? So this notion, what would you want for yourself? If you are in a place, if you're an attorney who is in a firm that doesn't have a career path, that doesn't mean you don't have one. That doesn't mean you can't have one. It just means you have to create it for yourself. So what does this look like? It's part of your goal setting for your own professional achievements. And say, okay, I want to move up and have a better title and have more decision-making ability within X amount of time. And what is reasonable? And what would you want to achieve in order to make that happen? And what, as a law firm owner, what do you want your employees to achieve in order for them to be rewarded with advancement, with more responsibility, with more accountability too, but with more money? What are you going to require of them to give them a bigger piece of the pie? Remembering that as a law firm owner, that pie is growing with the growth of the people who work with you. So you end up saying, okay, let's be transparent about this. After 2 years, I expect you to have so many billable hours, whatever it is. I expect you to have published. Publication tied to career paths in law firms is quite common. So I want you to author. I want you to have some visibility. I want you to be bringing in business. And sometimes it's not always obvious what business is brought in by whom at a firm, but often it is. So if you can see that someone's a team player, if you can see that they've added a skill set, if they've improved the way you offer your services, if your clients are happy with their work, that could be another measure that says, okay, now this person qualifies for the next level. And what is that next level? And having these definitions in place makes it easy for people to be motivated to reach that next level. And why would they stay if they have that career path in place? Well, they can see that they're advancing. If they can see that if they just stay a little bit longer, that they will end up making partner, making junior partner, or having a seat at the table, then they'll be more likely to stick around that time so that they can achieve those things rather than jumping ship and going to a place that will offer them these things. So buenos dias, Evangelina. I'm so glad that you're here. So when we're looking at these career paths for everyone, who is the right person to set it? So obviously, human resources has a role in setting the career path. But the lawyers at a law firm, when you're talking about the progression and advancement of a professional who's a lawyer at your firm, also has to be a part of that career path definition. So, of course, human resources is not going to make the decision about whether or not someone becomes partner at a firm necessarily, but the human resources people at the firm can really help define what it takes to get there. And they can actually look at the evaluations of different people and compare successes at the firm, not necessarily individual tasks, but successes. So in the few minutes we have left, I hope that people understand that a career path is important and that it benefits not only the people who are on their career journeys, but also the owners of these firms and companies that employ these people and advance them along the way. There is another consideration. And this is one that's kind of left out and is an afterthought, and it's one that causes a lot of confusion. That is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is something that needs to be taken into consideration when you're evaluating people and looking at what the career path and trajectory looks like for someone. Now, I was challenged a couple of years ago by a law firm team that said to me, how can we justify advancement based on this criteria of women or people of color next to white men who have been at the firm for 10 or 15 years who didn't take time away to have children, for example, or who have been working just as long? How can we advance women and people of color in the face of competing right next to them? That is a very difficult question because a lot of them are looking at it as punishment of the white guy who was, lucky enough or privileged enough to have his education handed to him, for example, or to be just given opportunities along the way because he was able to have that continuity that you can have when you don't step aside to have a child or, start a family. And these are things that are going to be difficult, but that you have to tackle them and you do need to consider them. And so when I say to you, evaluate people based on criteria that's individualized for their career path, that is the reason why. This is why it is so crucial. And it's because you can't just take one person's career path and compare it to another person and say, well, this person has been here for 10 years and brought in more business, when another person may have brought in a really great client, but maybe they were there for two years less than this other person. That doesn't make their journey less important. It doesn't make their challenges any easier or more difficult. It's just something that needs to be considered and evaluated on an individual level for someone's career path. So when I say you need to be transparent, maybe there are certain markers that people should just kind of know. After around 7 or 8 years, we just kind of consider everyone at the partnership level. In some firms, after 10 years, if you haven't made partner, see ya, get out. You're not welcome here. In some firms, they want these worker bees, people who, they're motivated to make the money that they're making, but they don't have this ambition. Maybe they have other priorities in their lives or things that enrich themselves that are outside of that professional decision that they've made. And so that's okay too. But consider these things, consider all of them, and then make the decisions that are best for the firm and that are best for the people who work there. And I said before, even people who are not lawyers, but maybe you have technical experts, maybe you have staff, even, like I said, receptionists and clerks and docketing personnel and other types of staff, paralegals. Everyone needs to feel this kind of success and motivation in order to continue making you more efficient and productive. So if you have any questions at all about what a career path should look like for your firm, if you want an individual evaluation for us to come in and say, this is great, this is what your team has accomplished, look at how much more you could accomplish with all of these different considerations in place for your team. This is realistic, this is idealistic, but go for it. We're happy to help you with all of those things at Firm Forward. And so I encourage you, if you have questions, shoot us an email at solutions@firmforward.com or give us a call, set up a meeting with us. We'd be happy to take a look at your career paths and to give you insight into what other career paths look like and what yours could be, and help that bottom line, your productivity, your retention. So join us every week on Wednesdays for Live with Liz. We're here at 9 a.m. Houston time with the occasional diversion, but we'll let you know. And we're really glad to have you here with us. So see you next week on Live with Liz. Take care, everybody.